For more than 2,100 years, empire after empire marched toward this land, convinced they would be the one to finally conquer it. The armies of Alexander crossed its mountains. The Mongols burned its cities to the ground. The British shaped its borders. The Americans tried to reshape its future. Yet Iran endured them all. Protected by some of the harshest geography on Earth, this nation became far more than a country. It became a living fortress, forged from stone, fire, memory, poetry, and an unbreakable instinct to survive. Today, beneath those same mountains, nuclear facilities lie hidden deep underground. Across the region, a silent shadow war of drones, cyber attacks, assassinations, and proxies continues in the dark. To the outside world, Iran is often reduced to sanctions, missiles, and headlines of conflict. But Iran is far older, far deeper, and far more complex than those headlines could ever capture. This is the story of a civilization that faced empire after empire and learned how to survive them all. To truly understand why Iran sits at the center of so many global tensions today, one does not need complicated political analysis. You only need to study a map carefully. Iran is not merely a country. It is a natural fortress designed by geography itself. Spanning more than 6 million square kilometers, Iran occupies a strategic position at the crossroads of the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Caucasus. For thousands of years, any empire seeking to move between East and West has been forced to confront the formidable geography of the Iranian plateau, not as a temporary obstacle, but as a permanent condition of power. To the north, the Alborz Mountains rise dramatically like a defensive wall along the Caspian Sea coast. Their highest peak, Mount Damavand, towers more than 18,400 feet above sea level. To the west and southwest stretch the mighty Zagros Mountains, extending for nearly 1,000 miles. This vast range creates an endless maze of sharp ridges, deep valleys, and narrow passes that have slowed or broken invading armies for centuries. These are not merely scenic borders. They are the fundamental reason why Iran still exists today in roughly its current shape. Inside these natural barriers lies a land of dramatic extremes. In the southeast, the Lut Desert is one of the hottest places ever recorded on the planet, with ground temperatures exceeding 159 degrees Fahrenheit. While the desert burns in summer, snow blankets the northern peaks in winter, and violent sandstorms sweep across the central plateau. Life here has never been easy. But this very harshness has made conquest extraordinarily difficult and often futile. At the southern edge lies the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow choke point, only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest. Nearly a fifth of the world's traded oil passes through this corridor every single day. Any disruption here does not remain a regional issue. It immediately sends shockwaves through the global economy, affecting countries thousands of miles away. This single geographical fact explains why almost every major power on Earth has always had strong opinions about what happens inside Iran. Yet, Iran's true strength goes far beyond mountains, deserts, and oil routes. It is also shaped by memory, and in this land, historical memory runs deeper than almost anywhere else. Many Iranians strongly identify as Persian rather than Arab. They trace their cultural roots to one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations. The legacy of Cyrus the Great and the Achaemenid Empire, which once stretched from the Mediterranean to Central Asia, remains a powerful source of national pride. This is not mere nostalgia. It is a living framework through which Iranians interpret every foreign pressure, every sanction, and every threat. This ancient pride exists alongside a very young and modern society. Nearly half of Iran's population is under the age of 30. In the bustling streets of Tehran, young Iranians skillfully navigate between two parallel worlds. One defined by religious authority and economic sanctions, the other shaped by smartphones, global pop culture, social media, and digital creativity. They discuss artificial intelligence, cinema, philosophy, and politics in cafes, while routinely using VPNs to bypass internet restrictions. The tension between ancient identity and modern aspiration, between tradition and innovation, runs through nearly every aspect of contemporary Iranian life. To outsiders, Iran is often portrayed as a monolithic Islamic state. The reality is far more complex and nuanced. This is a land where multiple civilizations, ethnic groups, languages, and religious traditions have coexisted, sometimes uneasily, for centuries. And like the mountains that surround and protect it, Iran has learned over millennia to endure its immense pressure not by eliminating it, but by building around it, adapting to it, and ultimately outlasting it. While many empires throughout history left behind only fortresses, weapons, and battlefields, Persia chose a different legacy. It left behind beauty, deliberate, sophisticated, and deeply intentional. This instinct to create harmony in the midst of chaos became one of the most distinctive characteristics of Persian civilization. Long before the modern era, Persian artists, architects, and rulers understood that in a land of extremes, beauty was not mere decoration. It was a form of defiance, a way to impose order, meaning, and transcendence upon an often unforgiving world. Our journey into this artistic heritage begins in the dry plains of southern Iran, where the ruins of Persepolis still stand as one of the most awe-inspiring archaeological sites on Earth. Constructed more than 220 years ago by Darius the Great, and later expanded by his successors, Persepolis was never meant to be just another capital. It was a ceremonial stage, a grand declaration of how Persia saw itself and the world. Massive stone staircases, wide enough for horsemen to ride up, elevated foreign delegations toward the royal audience halls. Along the walls, incredibly detailed reliefs show representatives from every corner of the empire. Egyptians, Babylonians, Lydians, Armenians, Scythians, and Central Asians, each bringing tribute. What makes these carvings so striking is not the celebration of military victory, but the emphasis on orderly harmony. Different peoples appear with their own distinct clothing, hairstyles, and gifts. Yet all are arranged within a carefully structured, unified vision. Persepolis was Persia's powerful message to the world. We do not merely conquer, we organize civilization. Even after Alexander the Great burned the city in 330 BCE, its memory refused to die. The ruins became a symbol that would echo through Persian consciousness for thousands of years. A relatively short distance from Persepolis lies Shiraz, a city that represents a gentler, more intimate dimension of Persian genius. For centuries, Shiraz has been synonymous with poetry, gardens, and mystical beauty. At the heart of this reputation stands the Deir Nasir al-Mulk Mosque, known as the Pink Mosque. Built in the 19th century, it is famous not for its size, but for its extraordinary mastery of light. Every morning at sunrise, beams of colored light pour through the intricate stained glass windows, flooding the prayer hall with shifting patterns of ruby red, sapphire blue, emerald green, and golden yellow. The entire space seems to dissolve. Stone and tile transform into living light. Geometry becomes pure emotion. What visitors witness is not simply architecture. It is a spiritual experience designed to remind every soul of the divine presence through overwhelming beauty. Not far away, the tradition of Persian gardens continues to flourish. designed according to ancient principles of paradise. The very word paradise comes from the Old Persian paradisa. These gardens represent humanity's eternal attempt to create ordered beauty within the arid landscape. Water channels, fruit trees, fragrant flowers, and shaded pavilions were arranged in precise geometric patterns that symbolized cosmic harmony. Further north in Isfahan, Persian urban planning and architectural ambition reached their highest expression. In the early 17th century, Shah Abbas the Great transformed the city into the magnificent capital of the Safavid Empire. At its center, he created Naqsh-e-Jahan Square, the image of the world, one of the largest and most majestic public squares ever built. What made Isfahan truly extraordinary was not just its scale, but its philosophical coherence. Mosques, palaces, and bazaars were deliberately arranged so that religion, governance, commerce, and daily life existed together in one harmonious system. Inside the Shah Mosque, Persian architects achieved something remarkable. The massive dome was engineered with such acoustic precision that a single whispered prayer or gentle clap can ripple and multiply into 1,000 echoes beneath it. Centuries before modern Psi understood sound waves. They had already learned to turn resonance into a profound spiritual experience. Yet Isfahan's greatness was never limited to Persian Islamic architecture alone. In the Armenian quarter of New Jolfa, Christian churches stand side by side with Islamic masterpieces. The Vank Cathedral is especially striking. Its interior beautifully blends Christian iconography with Persian floral motifs, miniature painting techniques, and Safavid color palettes. This cultural synthesis was not accidental. It reflected a civilization confident enough to absorb and reinterpret outside influences without losing its own core identity. No exploration of Persian artistic achievement would be complete without mentioning Yazdi, the ancient desert city known as the City of Wind. Here, beauty and ingenious engineering came together in service of both survival and spirituality. Tall wind catchers, or badgers, rise above the rooftops, capturing even the slightest breeze and channeling cool air down into homes, creating natural air conditioning long before electricity existed. But Yazd's deepest artistic statement may be spiritual. At the Zoroastrian fire temple of Atash Behram, a sacred flame has reportedly burned continuously for over 1,500 years. It has survived empires, invasions, revolutions, and the collapse of entire civilizations around it. That uninterrupted flame stands today as a quiet but powerful symbol of continuity, a living reminder that some lights simply refuse to be extinguished. Across all these masterpieces, from the monumental scale of Persepolis to the intimate spirituality of Nasir al-Mulk, from the urban harmony of Isfahan to the desert resilience of Yazd, runs one unifying thread. Persian civilization consistently responded to harshness, not only with military strength or political power, but with an almost obsessive commitment to creating beauty, order, and meaning. They built gardens in the desert. They turned mathematics into music and light into prayer. They designed cities as philosophical arguments. They carved poetry into stone and light. This was not escapism. It was a profound civilizational reality. The deep belief that even in a world full of uncertainty and hardship, humanity could still create spaces of harmony, reflection, and transcendence. And this same artistic spirit, born centuries ago, continues to echo through Iranian culture today in ways both visible and invisible. Empires built the grand monuments and glittering mosques that still draw visitors from around the world. But the true mastery of Persian civilization was perfected far away from imperial capitals. In remote villages, on steep mountain slopes, and at the edges of unforgiving deserts, where ordinary people turned survival into a quiet, generational art form. This is the Iran that exists beyond postcards and tourist routes. This is the Iran of adaptation, ingenuity, and an intimate relationship with an often hostile landscape. Here, communities did not try to conquer nature. Instead, they learned to disappear into it, to negotiate with it, and to shape their lives according to its demanding rhythms. High in the volcanic foothills of Mount Sahand, in northwestern Iran, lies one of the most extraordinary settlements on Earth, the village of Kanduvan. At first glance, it looks like something from a fantasy film. Dozens of cone-shaped rock formations rise from the valley floor, like giant termite mounds or ancient sculptures. But these are not natural formations that people simply moved into. For nearly 700 years, generations of families have patiently carved our entire lives directly into the volcanic rock. Homes in Kanduvan include multiple levels hollowed out from solid stone, complete with kitchens, living rooms, storage chambers, and sleeping areas. The thick rock walls provide natural insulation, keeping interiors cool during the blistering summers and warm during freezing winters. Smoke from bread ovens and heating fires still rises gently from openings near the tops of these stone towers each morning. life moves at a slower pace here. Children play on rocky pathways, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, while elders sit outside their carved doorways, continuing traditions passed down through countless generations. In Kandovan, the mountain itself became both shelter and architecture. Far to the north, near the lush, mist-covered slopes of the Alborz Mountains and the Caspian forests, another remarkable village tells a different story of adaptation. Masula is built on terrain so steep that traditional streets were almost impossible to construct. So the villagers created a unique vertical architecture. The roof of one house serves as the front yard and pathway for the house above it. Homes are stacked like terraces against the mountainside. There are almost no cars in the narrow passages. People move through staircases, elevated walkways, and small plazas suspended on the slope. The distinctive yellow ochre walls of the houses were chosen deliberately. They stand out vividly against the heavy fog that frequently swallows the mountains, helping residents navigate safely. In Masula, architecture created not just shelter, but deep interdependence. Neighbors literally live on top of one another, sharing space and to support in an environment where isolation during harsh weather could mean danger. Further into the central plateau, the village of Abiani offers yet another master's class in environmental harmony. Built from iron-rich red clay at the edge of the desert mountains, the entire settlement blends so seamlessly into the surrounding hills that from a distance it becomes almost invisible. This natural camouflage was not accidental. For centuries, the village's isolation helped preserve cultural elements that disappeared in more accessible parts of Iran. Residents still wear distinctive traditional clothing, speak an ancient dialect of Persian, and follow seasonal rhythms largely unchanged for hundreds of years. Residents still wear distinctive traditional clothing, speak an ancient dialect of Persian, and follow seasonal rhythms largely unchanged for hundreds of years. During harvest season, rooftops turn into open-air pantries where fruits, walnuts, herbs, and pomegranate seeds are carefully laid out to dry for winter storage. Many old wooden doors still feature two separate knockers, one for men and one for women, allowing families to know who was waiting outside before opening. These small details reveal how isolation became a powerful protector of identity and social structure. Deep within the rugged Zagros Mountains, villages such as Palangan and the Uramanat region take adaptation even further. Homes are built in stacked layers, using dry stone construction techniques refined over generations. Entire settlements appear from afar, like natural extensions of the cliffs themselves, rising in organic tiers above narrow river valleys, carved through stone over millennia. During winter, snow dusts the upper ridges, while smoke curls up from clustered stone houses below. Seasonal festivals fill the valleys with traditional music as families gather on terraces, overlooking dramatic landscapes. Here, geography did more than shape architecture. It helped preserve languages, oral histories, tribal customs, and distinct regional identities that might otherwise have been lost to time. Not all hidden life exists in the mountains. Near the edge of the merciless Lut Desert, settlements such as Makunik and Maymand developed under completely opposite pressures. In these extreme heat zones, survival demanded minimizing exposure. Houses were built low, thick-walled, and often partially underground. Windows and doors were kept small and narrow to block scorching winds and sandstorms. In Maymand, one of Iran's oldest continuously inhabited places, families carved multi-room cave homes directly into soft rock. Soot from generations of indoor fires has blackened the seatlings, creating an atmosphere that feels almost primordial. These were not temporary shelters. They were complete social universes designed for endurance. While some communities rooted themselves deeply into stone and earth, others chose movement as their strategy. The Bakhtiari and Qashqai nomadic tribes have for centuries practiced seasonal migration known as kouch, epic journeys twice a year across rivers, valleys, and mountain passes with thousands of sheep and goats. These were not random wanderings. They followed precisely timed routes passed down through oral tradition. Entire communities moved together: elders, children, musicians, weavers. Their black goat hair tents, called Saya Chador, were engineered to withstand wind and rain. Qashqai women wove gabe carpets that often captured fragments of these migrations. Stylized mountains, rivers crossed, animals protected, and campsites remembered in wool and color. In this way, culture itself became portable, carried across vast distances on the backs of people and animals. Even on the southern shores, adaptation took unique forms. On Hormuz Island in the Persian Gulf, the earth itself is dramatically colored by iron-rich minerals. Local communities learned not only to build with this red soil, but to incorporate it into daily life. From artwork to traditional cooking techniques, turning the landscape into an integral part of cultural identity. Across all these diverse environments, volcanic rock, steep forested slopes, red clay mountains, scorching deserts, and migratory routes, a consistent philosophy emerges. In Iran, for most of its history, human ingenuity was directed not toward dominating or subduing nature, but toward cooperating with it, learning its rules, and finding creative ways to coexist within its constraints. This long, intimate relationship with difficult land has cultivated something profound in the Iranian character. An instinctive cultural patience, a genius for improvisation, and a deep capacity for endurance. Long before modern sanctions or geopolitical pressures ever existed, life on the Iranian plateau had already trained generations in the same essential lesson, that survival often belongs not to the strongest, but to those most willing, able to adapt over the longest time. The wounds of history did not remain in the past. They evolved into a permanent state of tension that defines Iran's place in the 21st century, a conflict that rarely erupts into full-scale conventional war, yet never truly ends. This is the Shadow War. In October 2021, Iranians across the country experienced this reality in a way that felt both mundane and deeply unsettling. Long lines began forming outside gas stations. Electronic displays on fuel pumps suddenly froze. Then, strange messages appeared on the screens. Where is the gasoline? Some directly addressed the supreme leader. No explosions. No visible attack. Yet millions of ordinary citizens felt the immediate impact of a sophisticated cyber operation that disrupted one of the most basic elements of daily life. This is what confrontation with Iran often looks like today, not tanks crossing borders or fighter jets in the sky, but invisible disruptions that ripple through infrastructure, economy, and society. The battlefield has moved into cyberspace, supply chains, financial systems, intelligence operations, and proxy conflicts across the region. For decades, Iran has lived under a multi-layered campaign of maximum pressure, crippling international sanctions, targeted assassinations of scientists and military commanders, sophisticated cyber attacks like the famous Stuxnet virus that once sabotaged its nuclear program, and constant intelligence surveillance. These actions are rarely acknowledged openly by the countries behind them, allowing for a form of warfare that exists in the gray zone, debatable, persistent, and psychologically exhausting. Iran has adapted to this reality with remarkable strategic creativity. Knowing that its geography and history make it vulnerable to direct invasion, the country has invested heavily in asymmetric capabilities. Nuclear facilities and military command centers have been moved deep underground into mountain tunnels. A vast network of underground missile bases and hardened launch sites now stretches across the country. ballistic missile technology has been developed to the point where Iran can now strike targets hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away with growing precision. But perhaps the most controversial element of Iran's strategy is what it calls strategic depth. While much of the outside world describes this as a network of dangerous proxy militias, from Iran's perspective, it is a necessary defensive buffer. Through support for groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, various Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen, Iran seeks to ensure that any future conflict will be fought far from the Iranian plateau itself. If war comes, Tehran wants it to happen in Beirut, Baghdad, or Sana'a, not in Isfahan or Tehran. This approach creates a complex web of relationships, loyalties, and deniable operations that are difficult for outsiders to fully map. An Israeli airstrike on an Iranian-linked position in Syria can trigger a drone attack on shipping in the Persian Gulf months later. A cyber operation against Iranian infrastructure can be answered by sophisticated malware, targeting ports or energy facilities elsewhere. The conflict has become atmospheric, constant, low intensity, and almost impossible to resolve through traditional diplomacy. Inside Iran, the effects are felt in everyday life, even if many civilians never see the battlefield directly. Sanctions have dramatically weakened the currency, driven inflation to painful levels, and made imported goods expensive or unavailable. Young professionals often debate whether their future lies inside the country or through emigration. Parents worry about how economic pressure will affect their children's education and opportunities. Internet blackouts and restrictions have become routine, forcing an entire generation to master the use of VPNs and underground digital networks. Yet, daily life in Tehran and other major cities continues with a kind of quiet defiance. Students still fill cafes and universities. Families gather in parks under the Alborz Mountains as evening falls. Street vendors sell tea and grilled corn beside traffic-choked highways. Weddings, funerals, and Nowruz celebrations still mark the rhythm of the year. There is no widespread panic, only a deep, normalized adaptation to living under prolonged uncertainty. This ability to function under pressure reveals something important about modern Iran. The society is not the same as the state. While the government maintains a posture of ideological resistance and strategic defiance, ordinary Iranians often hold more complex views. Many feel genuine national pride when the country stands up to external pressure. At the same time, they may privately criticize their own leadership for economic mismanagement, corruption, or excessive restrictions on personal and cultural freedoms. This duality, simultaneous resistance to outsiders and dissatisfaction with the inside, creates a nuanced social reality that is rarely captured in international headlines. Meanwhile, Iranian culture continues to demonstrate extraordinary vitality, even under these conditions. Filmmakers produce award-winning movies that rely on subtle metaphor and masterful restraint to explore for themes of freedom, loneliness, love, and authority. Underground musicians record in secret studios. Visual artists push boundaries within the limits of censorship. Writers and poets maintain the ancient Persian tradition of saying difficult truths through layered language and symbolism. The Shadow War, therefore, is not just a geopolitical struggle. It is a test of civilizational endurance. Iran's leadership believes that by making any direct attack on the country prohibitively expensive and complicated, they can outlast their adversaries, just as their ancestors outlasted the Mongols, the Safavids outmaneuvered the Ottomans, and the Islamic Republic survived the devastating 8-year war with Iraq. Whether this strategy will ultimately succeed remains one of the great uncertainties of our time. What is clear is that the Shadow War has become self-perpetuating. Each side sees itself as acting defensively. Each new incident deepens mistrust. Each round of sanctions and retaliation makes de-escalation more difficult. Satellites watch from above. Cyber units probe networks around the clock. Missiles remain hidden in mountain tunnels. And beneath it all, the Iranian plateau continues its ancient rhythm, absorbing pressure, adapting and enduring. The Shadow War has not broken Iran, but it has shaped it profoundly, creating a nation that is simultaneously isolated and influential, sanctioned yet resourceful, criticized globally yet deeply proud of its ability to survive against the odds. At night, Tehran reveals a face that few outsiders ever see. From the hills overlooking the city, millions of lights spill across the valley floor, like a glittering sea stretching all the way to the dark silhouette of the Alborz Mountains. Highways remain alive with flowing traffic long after midnight. Families sit together on park benches as the day's heat finally retreats. The scent of kebabs and saffron tea drifts from street vendors, while the faint sound of music escapes from open windows in old apartment buildings, weathered by decades of sanctions and dust. This is not a city frozen in geopolitics or trapped in endless crisis. Life here pulses forward, persistent and stubbornly human, despite everything the world throws at it. And perhaps this is the single most important truth one must grasp about Iran. The state and the civilization are not the same entity. Governments come and go. They rise with grand promises, harden into institutions, grow rigid, and eventually weaken or transform. But beneath the surface of politics, beneath the slogans, the surveillance, and the headlines, exists something far older, deeper, and more resilient, a civilizational soul that has survived for over 2.5 millennia. This soul lives most vividly in the Persian language and its poetry. In Iranian homes, taxis, university classrooms, and quiet family gatherings, the words of Hafez, Sa'di, Ferdowsi, and Rumi are not treated as distant literary relics. They are living companions. Verses from Hafez are consulted like oracles, quoted in everyday conversation, shared on social media, and whispered between lovers or friends. Sa'di's emphasis on human kindness and Ferdowsi's epic preservation of pre-Islamic Persian identity continue to shape how Iranians see themselves and their place in the world. Poetry here has never been mere art. It has been a sanctuary. When direct speech became dangerous, metaphor became the weapon of choice. If this deep journey into the soul of Iran has touched you, moved you, or simply helped you see this ancient civilization in a new light, please support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss future storytelling documentaries from around the world. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. What surprised you the most about Iran after watching this? Which part of Persian culture would you like to explore in a future video? Or simply write one word that best describes what you feel about Iran now. Thank you for spending nearly 1 hour with us on this journey. In a world full of noise and quick judgments, your willingness to sit with complexity and history is deeply appreciated. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and remember, some fortresses are not built to be conquered. They are built to endure. See you in the next story.